only recently been able to confirm, the arts are essential to our ability to heal and thrive. We'll show you how music, dancing, painting can help people dealing with Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's, anxiety, depression, and many other conditions. The healing power of art is next.
Thank you to the Eunice Joyce Gardner Charitable Foundation for its leadership support of the Health Channel.
Welcome to Finding Hope, the healing power of art. I'm Carla Hill. Thanks so much for joining us. Did you know that almost 3 billion people worldwide are living with neurological conditions? But the arts can help people learn to better cope with their conditions. Today, we're going to introduce you to the Neuroarts, a great way to improve both physical and mental health. We have a fantastic panel to help us explore this subject. Dr. Jeffrey Borenstein, the president and CEO of the Brain and Behavior Research Foundation. Dr. Borenstein is also the host of Healthy Minds, which airs on many public television stations, including this one. Welcome, sir. And we have Cindy Surman, assistant to the directors at the Boca Ballet Theater. Cindy also co-founded BBT4PD, a Parkinson's disease program at Boca Ballet. And in studio, we have Dr. Bama Lutes, a consultant with the Palm Health Foundation. Also, Ms. Blake Davis, the Education Program Manager for Alzheimer's Community Care, and Dr. LaToya Lewis, who's the Associate Professor at the University of Miami School of Nursing and Health Studies. Thank you all for being with us. So, throughout time, people have sought artistic outlets to prevent or treat illness, express joy, soothe fear, ease grief, and build community. Some of the oldest archaeological discoveries reveal the long-standing human pursuit of self-expression. Even during the recent pandemic, people turned to the arts to help combat the rampant fear and uncertainty that existed everywhere. So as we begin, let's look at what neuroarts really are and see how they can help us. Take a look at this video and we'll hear more from our panel on the other side.
So social prescribing is a term that basically means how do we use arts and aesthetic experiences to come together. So to bring it to people with Parkinson's. So dance and Parkinson's is an extraordinary benefit to gait, to cognition, to sleep, to mood. We know that with depression, music in particular can be incredibly soothing for igniting neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin and other kinds of things, hormones like oxytocin. So those chemicals, oxytocin is what's called the love hormone. It's the hormone that makes you feel comfortable and safe, and that's a really important thing when you're depressed. Dopamine and serotonin, they do a lot of different things, but in this case, they're reward oriented. So when you are finding pleasure and joy in something, you feel better. I'll give you one more example. Expressive writing is something that has been used very effectively in looking at stress and anxiety and depression. Why would that be? Just getting your thoughts out on paper. Well, we know that when you get these ideas, this ideation that keeps ruminating in your head out on paper, it lowers cortisol, and cortisol is that hormone that really advances stress and anxiety and can lead to depressive states. And this field of social prescribing, arts on prescription, is starting to build as the neuroarts and the neuroaesthetic science is proving the validity of what the artists have always known. And I think it's a really beautiful marriage of the arts and sciences.
as a lover of the arts myself, I think that's just fascinating. So let's get a reaction from the panel. Dr. Borenstein, I want to start with you. It is really impressive to see how the Neuroarts help many of your patients. It reinforces that the brain can be changed. What are your thoughts on that?
You know, when I went to medical school, I was taught that old brains don't grow new cells, and old meant after the age of 2. We now know that's not true. Old brains can grow new cells through a process called neurogenesis and develop new connections between cells. And the Neuroarts help with that process. So it's very useful for people who are healthy and want to maintain health. And it's also useful for people who have particular conditions and include that as a part of the treatment.
I want to go over to Blake now. You're involved in work with Alzheimer's. And how has the Neuroarts helped with your patients and their caregivers?
So one of the great things about the Neuroarts is there's no barrier to access or implementation. You don't need to use a licensed music therapist to provide treatment, but you can, or an artist, or a caregiver can do it at home. So while the disease progresses with the patient and their participation goes from active engagement like painting or drawing, singing, dancing, to passive engagement of listening to music, they're still going to get a therapeutic effect on the brain. There's not a lot of treatments out there that are as effective, inexpensive, and carry no risk for harm like that.
Thank you so much. That's so interesting. And Dr. Lutes, when we think about the arts and how nourishing it can be, or even viewing a sunset, reading a book, tell us how that helps the brain as well.
Well, we all know it does. We all love the arts, so we enjoy being engaged with the arts. The enjoyment itself is standalone. What's different in neuroarts as a field, an emerging field, is that science and evidence is involved. These are stimulus for the brain. When you look at colors or shapes or forms or motions or patterns, you listen to music and you hear rhythms, all of these things stimulate the brain in very specific ways. And because of that knowledge of how the brain responds to this stimulus, it can be tailored to particular conditions.
Dr. Lewis, I want to come to you next. You're training the next generation of nurses. How are the Neuroarts playing a part in your training and your teaching of your students?
Well, what we try to focus on is focusing on the foundation of nursing, which includes the art and the science of healthcare. And we want to talk to our patients about not only the pharmacological benefits, but also the aspects of music therapy, art therapy, in order to improve their mood, mental health, emotional well-being as they go through the course of this particular disease process. And there are times that we incorporate the family members in this process because they may be going through caregiver role stress. So we try to make a more holistic point of view and incorporate that in the teaching with our students.
Fantastic. Cindy, I love what you're doing with dance. We've learned over time that Neuroarts are not only for the patient's mental health, but also for their physical well-being. Please talk more about that and what you're doing.
Absolutely. We know that everybody needs to move, and especially with a condition like Parkinson's disease. And so our class is specifically formatted, created for that. And we start seated and we start moving just everything, warming up the body, isolating body parts, getting together that mind-body connection and starting to breathe together as a community. And we spend about 30 minutes and really warm up everything and use every part of the body with all different forms of dance. And then from there, we go either behind the chair or to the ballet bar. So we're standing, but supported to do movement and transfer of weight, things that will help our posture and our balance, and moving on to gait. And then we clear the chairs to go to the center of the floor. We use the mirror, we do choreography, we travel. And the whole class is also always demonstrated from a seated position. Some of our participants do the whole class from their wheelchair. So there's all levels of ability in the room, but the class is accessible to all levels. And so everybody feels welcome. Everybody feels part of this safe space and community that's moving together and joyfully dancing together.
I want to stress that safe space and community. That was beautiful. We already have some questions from our audience. Thank you, everyone who's participating now and in advance. First, we hear from Michael in Boynton Beach, and he asks, my son has Tourette's syndrome and fights a daily battle. How can the arts help him? Dr. Borenstein, I want to throw this question at you first. Which of the arts would you think are most beneficial for this young man?
Well, Tourette's syndrome affects people's motor abilities and verbal abilities, with verbal tics, physical tics. So I think each of these have the potential to be helpful. Probably the best choice for an individual is what they would most enjoy, what they get most out of it so that they do it. So it could be dance, which has the benefit of listening to music and movement. It could be singing along with music, which can be helpful with some of the tics. But the most important thing is that the person with the condition enjoy doing it.
And Dr. Lewis, what are your thoughts for our viewer and his son with Tourette's regarding the arts?
Well, there's evidence that shows, to support that component, that if the individual does things that makes them happy, they can use that excess dopamine, which will help reduce the amount of tics. So there's, for example, an artist in London who likes to do sculptures, and she realizes during that moment her sculptures are reducing her tics. Other individuals play guitar, and while they are using that element, the tics are reduced. So there are various components that have been proven to be helpful.
Yes,
And if I may, I'd like to interject.
Yes.
Yes, years ago I had a student with Tourette's, and I was teaching the student music lessons. He did not tic when the music was being played. If I was demonstrating for him, he was fine. And the tics would stop and it was the French horn we were playing. And so when he was playing, the tics disappeared altogether. So there is research actually out there and available that shows that musical activity might be the most powerful of all for calming or redirecting that energy that otherwise might express as tics.
Just fascinating. Thank you. We have another question. It actually came via email from Lewis and Kendall. Thank you, Lewis. Lewis says, my dad has been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and when we go to see him, he doesn't always recognize us, but when the staff plays music, they see him perk up. So they never put two and two together, but it's clear that music definitely makes a difference for him. So Blake, in short, they want to know, how does music make a difference with Alzheimer's, and what would you say to this viewer?
Well, when you play music, you're able to tap into that long-term memory. So while someone with Alzheimer's can't always process the here and now, that short-term memory has failed, it's a really great way to get them to connect with you in the present. And so when they hear that music and Luis's dad perks up, they're able to connect back together as a family, and it can help redirect challenging behaviors as well.
Dr. Lutz, any thoughts on that?
Well, she's absolutely right that memory and music are stored very near one another in the brain, and those areas of the brain through the corpus callosum, which is like a little traffic director, can send the signals from the music almost right to where you were when you first heard that music, or if it's a favorite song, which is why it's so effective for raising moods and for sheer joy. People might not remember if you ask them to remember, but they remember what they hear. And that helps them access memories. And sometimes that lasts for a period of time after hearing familiar music. It's quite fascinating. More research is being done, but this has been observed for the last 30 or 40 years, that people will instantly light up, that maybe have been non-conversational, that maybe just weren't able to interact in the past.
There's a beautiful video online of a former ballet dancer.
Yes.
Yeah, you've seen it. And the music comes on. She's probably in her late 80s or 90s, and she's back on the stage. She knows every move. So thank you for that. Dr. Lewis, I want to switch over to you and talk about lifestyle. You know, how important is that in terms of the well-being, you know, no smoking, eating right? What would your advice be to those watching, and maybe even Louis and his dad?
Oh, definitely. Certain aspects of not smoking, getting good sleep. A lot of times we focus on mostly children and making sure they get sleep, but as we get older, we still need sleep. For instance, between the ages of 18 and 60, we still need at least 7 hours of sleep. And we always need to incorporate that. Good diet, getting outside, getting sunshine, exposure, those can help impact mood, activity, behavior. Other aspects include engaging in activity, which we've talked about a little bit before. How is that beneficial? Smoking, reducing that aspect. And then getting good exercise is essentially a part of that process.
We do only think about the young ones, but I'm telling you, I'm feeling the effects of lack of sleep. I'm saying too much in front of all these mental health folks. Dr. Borenstein, your thoughts on living a good life. How can we incorporate that with the Neuroarts?
Yeah, I think that's right on target. It's the full gamut. So absolutely, sleep is essential. It's a time that our brain really does a lot of work. It consolidates memory. It throws some things out, so to speak, in the trash. So sleep is extremely important, and lack of sleep can cause a problem for people. Exercise is extremely important. Physical activity on a regular basis helps with that process of neurogenesis, the growth of new brain cells. And the arts, we are a social being, human beings. So the arts bring people together, whether it be singing together, watching art together, storytelling together, dancing together. We're social. And that social interaction is also very healthy for the brain.
Now, let's look more closely at some of the specific fields, starting with music and singing. These two arts can help patients in many ways, including the following. Music as a neuroart improves cognitive function in people with dementia. It reduces the anxiety associated with cancer, relieves symptoms of trauma, and improves motor coordination. Singing as a neuroart helps repair the brain's language network. It improves speech production through neuroplasticity and helps patients manage aphasia. Dr. Borenstein, back to you for a moment. We mentioned aphasia. Can you explain what that is to us?
Yeah, aphasia occurs when a part of the brain that is related to language is negatively affected. Sometimes it could be a stroke. Sometimes it could be a head injury. Sometimes it could be a tumor. It could be some other neurologic illness. And it makes sense that singing, listening to music, may be something that can actually help people along with other steps if they are experiencing aphasia. So this is another example of where the Neuroarts can be very useful, and more research is being conducted to better understand those processes.
Dr. Lutes, can you simplify how music and singing help the brain and maybe help dealing with neurological conditions that take them back to those memories? How does that help?
Well, it's so interesting because all of my life I've been a musician. I'm a musicologist by training, and I have studied music across all cultures. So all human beings are music. We know music we use to soothe babies, when we want to sing to our children. When it comes to memory, if you sing something to pitch levels, to a melody, happy birthday with the lyrics, hi, my name is, and a person cannot speak, they will be able to sing it before they can speak it. And this is where that application, music therapists do this regularly in hospital environments to help stroke and brain injury patients recover. So that connection to the way we express ourselves musically seems to be stronger than the way we would speak. And it's neuroplasticity, which is the changing of neural pathways, that helps our brains go from, I used to be able to speak, I can't speak now, but I can still sing, so I'll sing, and then I'll teach myself to speak again. Wow. That's how it works.
I love how everyone is just we're so excited about this because there is hope. And Blake, talk to us more about music and your patients with dementia and what you see the improvement in. What are the benefits that you've seen with music?
Well, I'm so glad that you talked about neuroplasticity because when it comes to neurodegenerative disorders like Alzheimer's, and they have those amyloid plaques and tau tangles in the brain, the ability for the brain to make new connections and to go around those areas means that they can stabilize their abilities and preserve cognition, which is going to extend those quality years that they have left. That makes a huge difference for patients.
Wow, thank you so much. And now we have another great video to share, this one offering a background on how music triggers and may help preserve special memories. Check it out.
One of the reasons why music is so helpful in memory is because we know really how profoundly impactful music is to the human brain. And we think about this in the way that when we listen to music or we're in the presence of music, it activates so many different parts of our brain. Because of that, your brain wants to hold on to the music because it's so activating of the human brain. As we think about the ABCs and how we learned the ABCs, we learned it through song. And the reason why that is because music is very high stimulation to the brain. It has melody, it has harmony, it has rhythm, and it has words. And because of that, your brain wants to hold on to that more than any other type of stimulation to your brain. So more than the words alone. And as you think about many of those core memories in your life, or even many of those core educational principles, we learned it through song.
Twinkle, twinkle, little star.
When you think about wanting to remember specific pieces of information, actually putting it to song may be very helpful. In my experience as a music therapist, we treat with patients who have had traumatic brain injuries or strokes that may have lost memories and may have lost the ability to remember things like days of the week or even how to brush their teeth. And so what we do is we make up songs that have melody, rhythm, components that use that content to teach these people short-term memories again. So in everyday life, anything that we can put to a song is going to be helpful for our brain to retain that. Even as we think about natural aging, one of the things about music is it's very deeply processed in our brain. We know that music is processed all the way down through our brainstem. And our brainstem is really one of the most primal aspects of our brain. Our brainstem is what is responsible for our heart rate and our breathing rate. And music is processed through there. So as we learn music throughout our lives, it sticks deeply, actually neurologically, in the brain. But also when we think about music, particularly music from the time we were 17 to 25, that's connected to such emotional experiences in our life. Sort of core memories of our development that our brains want to keep that because it's also tied to experience. It's tied to these other things that we have learned. And so we often find that sometimes it's hard to remember our neighbor's name, but we can remember every word to the Carpenter song that we learned in 1970, right? So it's a very interesting phenomenon.
We do remember those Carpenter songs, and now I'm showing my age. Oh my goodness. Dr. Lewis.
That's okay.
I want to come to you. It sounds so simple when we are hearing this information. How do you encourage your nurses to incorporate maybe music therapy?
So what we like to focus on is interdisciplinary care. And also we want to engage the patient and the family members. So we will ask some of our patients who may have had strokes or other neurological issues, what was their favorite type of music? What do they like to hear? And because of technology's advancement, we can have little speakers there playing that type of music to help promote some stimulation. And also we have found in the hospital setting, if we play some music, it can also decrease respirations, decrease heart rate for patients, help with anxiety, and it can also help promote certain aspects of healing.
So Dr. Lutz Deal, talk about some of your experiences and how you've seen music help patients and maybe even some of your philosophy on this.
Well, the thing about being musical, especially in an environment like you're talking about. When someone's in a hospital, they're under stress. When someone's going to go into surgery, they're under stress. The body reacts the way the body is wired. The body's always asking, is this dangerous or safe? You know, where am I? And that's how we use our sensory organs. We know that if we're sitting quietly listening to music, or if we're thinking about a really wonderful song that we love, or hearing sounds that calm us, we know we're safe. And so in a way, we're focusing our attention, and music does that really well, partly because the way our ears are situated and the way the hearing parts of our brain are highly developed networks. And they start very early in utero, and they last almost till the end of life. Even with Alzheimer's, one of the last parts of the brain to deteriorate is the ability to hear and remember the music that you loved. It's deep in the brain. Part of it is where that processing of music is situated. So I think that the other thing I wanted to say is that you mentioned you're incorporating this more in the hospital setting. Certainly in Alzheimer care facilities, we've talked about a lot of environments for this. The field is leveling. That's what the field of neuroarts is. It's how can I learn from Dr. Borenstein, and how can I as a musicologist help Blake with her patients, and how with nursing, how do the music therapist and dance therapist, what Cindy's doing with Parkinson's patients fills a huge need. So this is sort of a really special time when the engagement with the arts as a mode for healing and wellness, or as a way of addressing symptoms and managing them, it really is coming to the fore.
It really is. I want to definitely speak with Cindy about dance, but Blake, since we did mention your line of work, if you can add on, or what are your thoughts on what Dr. Lutes just talked about with regard to your patients?
So just last week, we actually had the Alvar Foundation come, and they had 2 violinists play for our patients in our Boca Raton Specialized Day Center. And it was interesting to see, it didn't matter the music, if it was contemporary or classical, but patients reacted differently. Some swayed to the beat, others actually would hold their hand in the mock bow position and mimic the rhythm, which is a little bit more complicated than beat. But when it came to Yesterday by the Beatles, it took a few notes, and those patients went right into that long-term memory. They pulled out that song, and they had an impromptu sing-along. They weren't told that it was coming up, but they all joined in. And this included patients who have lost English as a second language. They can't speak English anymore, but if you give them 3 to 4 notes of the Beatles, they can sure sing it.
Amazing, amazing. Cindy, I know you're more dance oriented, but what have you seen how music therapy helps patients?
Well, it's just so fun to listen to all this information, because it all feeds into a dance class, because we dance to music. And we are so blessed. We have our particular program, we have a pianist. So they're listening to live music, which we don't get much anymore. Unless you paid to go to a concert. So right there, step one, that's a blessing, and so exciting for them. And Bama, it was so exciting. It was so interesting to hear you talk about the tics would kind of disappear. Well, I sometimes see that with the tremors. Somebody might come in and they'll be tremoring, and then the music begins and they start to do slow connected movement, and all of a sudden it can just melt away. And it's kind of astounding. But just like everybody has said, our pianists can pull out music from the past, and you can tell when it hits somebody's soul, because it just opens them up and it frees their artistic expression, which again is something that we need, and it's something that just we don't come by every day in our everyday life. So to have the opportunity again in that safe space where nobody's judging you because you're not kicking your leg, they're just moving together, and they're letting that music inform the movement and just come straight from their soul. So it's really, really beautiful. And music it's just an amazing thing to watch in our class, what that does and how it transforms our participants.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Any response?
Well, I was just
Dr.
so
Lutes
glad
Deal?
that Cindy said what she said about how we're seeing this in a number of different environments. We are human beings, and we are therefore expressive. If you take away our ability to speak, what do? We move, we pantomime. That's what dance is. We also are bipedal creatures. We have 2 feet, so rhythm is powerful. And we're always, when we walk, we have to put the next foot down, the next foot down, and the next foot down. That's part of dance also. So we're tapping into some very primal connections in our brains and bodies that we don't need words for, and that is healthy too. And especially for people who have had their physicality compromised. The ability to reclaim a certain amount of control, whether it's tremors leaving or tics going by the wayside, or just being able to calm down and not be too excited. There's a lot of applications for this, once you know what it does.
So cool. I'm really enjoying this. Dr. Borenstein, I want to come back to you. What about singing? Experts say singing is both relaxing and therapeutic. Can you talk about singing and benefits to the brain?
Absolutely, and I promise I'm not going to sing like everybody is safe from my singing. As everybody's saying, this is a natural thing for people to do. We like the melodies, we like the rhythm, it brings back memories, we all do it, and we're speaking about people who have certain illnesses throughout this conversation. But even for people without an illness, for people who are healthy but maybe experiencing some anxiety or maybe experiencing some symptoms of depression, singing and music can be very helpful. If somebody has something stressful that they need to do, you often see it with athletes listening to music and maybe even humming along to it before the big match. It's very helpful. So I think part of what all of this information about the Neuroarts is doing is giving people an opening to take advantage of the benefits of music, dance, art, etc. It pushes people to do that.
Blake, I want to touch a little bit on something that Dr. Borenstein mentioned. It certainly is helping the patients, but what about your team, your colleagues? How might you be using Neuroarts or the arts to help them get through their day as they take care of their patients?
So one of the things that we do at Alzheimer's Community Care is really encourage them to use the arts in their therapeutic activities. So we have specialized day centers. We need to have therapeutic activities for 70% of our day. So to make it up with things that are fun, because the patients can tell, they can read your body language. You want to be having a good time with them. It makes a more impactful experience, and you get more out of your connection with the patient. We had our Port St. Lucie Day Center make a composite piece of the Mona Lisa. And so for them to work with each patient individually and meet them where they are at, it gives them the opportunity to adapt to them, and then to have it together. It's something that everyone's so proud of. We displayed it at our education conference a couple weeks ago, and it really moved people to see, like, oh, they can produce something. And of course they can. They're humans. We can all produce art.
We all can produce art. I love that. We do have another question. Imani writes in from Doral, and she says, I can definitely see a difference in my mom when she hears music that she listened to when she was younger. She didn't understand much these days, but the music definitely gets through to her. So her question is it possible to overdo it with music and make it seem like, you know, maybe Imani and her family are forcing their mom to remember something?
It's possible to do that with anybody. I have seen some wonderful music teaching and some really bad music teaching, and my motto was, that's why they call it playing. You know, you're playing music, you're enjoying it. It's a joyful thing to make music. And if what you're doing has to do with quality of life or the quality of a day, one day in the life of someone who otherwise is feeling isolated and forgotten and set aside, then by all means get them together and sing. We're hoping we can start an Alzheimer's chorus, a community chorus or choir in the area, which brings together not just the patients but the caregivers, and they sing music together. There are I've seen videos on YouTube, for example, where a son and his father sing gospel call and response in the car, and he'll just get dad in the car and they'll go for a drive, and as long as it's fun, there's no such thing as too much. When someone's tired, you know they're tired. You don't push it, but what a great mood lifter.
What a great, yes, indeed. Dr. Lewis, any advice to your students, these future nurses, when it comes to boundaries or limits?
Definitely. So something that we mentioned, that music therapy is beneficial, but we also want to encourage the hemodynamic response. So how is the patient's blood pressure when they're listening to music? How is their respiratory rate? Are they looking more anxious when they're hearing the music, or is it soothing and relaxing them? So we have to create an appropriate balance. Sometimes, depending on if music is just, for example, Beethoven, some relaxing music, how does that influence the patient versus music that has words in it, which can then cause unwarranted stimulation for the patient. So we want to just make sure it's also culturally relevant. So there are certain songs in particular cultures that we will ask, will the patient like to hear this particular song or that particular song? So we want to make sure we create a balance.
And in the neuroarts field, we call that autobiographical music making. And that's the key, is who's the patient?
Who's the patient, correct, correct. Yeah.
All wonderful. I mean, incorporating culture is so important. Another art form that has proved to be helpful for people with neurological conditions is dance. Dancing has many benefits, as Neuroarts can show us. It improves psychological health, it increases mobility, and certainly makes for better balance and posture. It also improves mood and decreases symptoms and reduces sense of an isolation associated with disease. Let's check out a short video on the many benefits of dancing and see how dance actually creates detours around blockages in our brains.
Dance combines four main components of our being into one holistic, integrative activity. So it's physical, it's cognitive, it's expressive, and it's social. And the joy of dancing is really found at the epicenter of those four areas. What we tend to be enjoying is the intersection of those four areas, because when we move, we create endorphins and other transmitters that help us feel better, that give us the reward of moving. But we're also engaging with people socially. There's a reason that dance has been part of our species for tens of thousands of years. When you go back in history and look at some early cave paintings from 20,000 years ago, you see paintings of people dancing. And the reason that it has sustained importance in our culture is that it is a social glue, but it also has a sort of medicinal quality in that it supports us and sustains us through a number of different life paths and challenges.
We enter this world as natural-born explorers with a curiosity and an unabashed sense of adventure. And I think movement is a natural part of that exploration and expression. And dance allows us to reveal and celebrate what is still possible. And that encourages continued discovery.
And the power of dance is that it is 100% additive. It adds back in this sense of confidence, this sense of joy, this sense of community and connection. When you're in a dance class, you are your best self. You are feeling this transformative experience, and a lot of the anxiety and worry that you have that might relate to the challenges you're having, it kind of melts away. And that's it seems like a miracle, but it's all about how dance creates detours around blockages in our brain that seems to work miracles, but it's based on science.
what a treat to have members of the Mark Morris Dance Company. I've worked with them. They believe in community service through dance. And speaking of which, Cindy, you started a program at the Boca Ballet Theater in South Florida 19 years ago that focuses on dance and Parkinson's disease. So let's take a look at a clip and we'll come back and talk to you about it. This is so wonderful. I want to point out to the audience that you're the only certified instructor in Florida. Tell us what we just watched.
So to back up, I'm certified by David Leventhal in Dance for Ph.D. He trained me, and he is an amazing support system continuing after he does training for teachers to create these programs around the country. And what you just saw, each year we offer a performing opportunity to some of the participants in our class. And brave souls, not everybody who takes the class, but this past year we had 8 participants who said, sure, I'll do this. And we had special rehearsals, and they learned specific choreography for 6 pieces. We invited their friends and family. We had over 100 people watching them in our studio. So it was in the same space that they danced. And my team was there with them, dancing with them, leading them, guiding them, supporting them. And what you just saw was a piece of choreography from the ballet Don Quixote. And some of the movement is from that ballet. Obviously, the music is from that ballet. And you cannot imagine the confidence building that happened with those 8 individuals who had specific classes just for them to work on this choreography. They were scared, but they got out there and they did it. And I'm telling you, some of them thought it was the best thing they'd ever done. The energy that you get back from an audience, and especially an audience of people who love you, who are just amazed at what they can do, and the confidence and the courage that they have to perform. And it's always a very special event. We've done it for the last 7 years, I think, 8 years. And it's always so well received by our patrons, by our supporters, by their families. It's a beautiful thing because it's, again, community and safe space, but it's also really stepping out. Can you imagine how scary it is to perform? And these people are thinking, what are they going to think of me? And the audience thinks, you are amazing. You are so brave. And they get all this love back. And it's just a real confidence booster for the participants. It's really beautiful.
I was just going to say, if you didn't know anyone had anything. Yes, go ahead.
Right. We call it share the joy, because that's what we feel like. We're sharing the joy that we have for our program with our audience.
Indeed, and we're all smiling, really, like we have these big smiles on in the studio because we do feel joyous. If you didn't know that the dancers were dealing with Parkinson's, you just think it was just wonderful community dance. Dr. Lewis, talk about how you see dance as a benefit to those in the community that might be dealing with Parkinson's?
Definitely, I see it as an opportunity for health promotion, quality of life. It gives an opportunity for individuals at different stages of the Parkinson illness to come together and focus on their abilities versus their inabilities. And this is definitely a beneficial opportunity for them to increase purpose, for them to actually have something to look forward to. And that is extremely beneficial for the community because we focus on health promotion and quality of life.
That's indeed. Dr. Borenstein, can you see the benefits of dance for people with Alzheimer's and dementia? What is that doing for their brain?
Absolutely, and you're right. That clip brought such a smile to all of our faces. How could it not? And it would do the same for other conditions people participate in. We know that the brain has certain circuits related to different activities. We learn more about that through research. And dance brings so much of that together. You have the physical movement. You have the music as a part of it. You have the social interactions. It brings so many things together. It affects so many different circuits in the brain. It's very stimulating. And I think it's extremely healthy for people who are able to do it with the kind of assistance that we saw the people with Parkinson's receive. It's very healthy to do that.
Blake, can you see the benefits of dance, and have you used dance in your facility?
We use dance. It's a huge mood booster. It gets everybody up and moving. But what's really great about dance too, when it comes to patients' health long term, is that you can use it like preventative medicine. So with dance, even learning a dance, you're using that short-term and long-term memory processing. But just in general, the movement, you have the spatial coordination, the balance. These are all things that can help prevent falls. Those are all vital skills that we need to keep ourselves upright. When a patient has a traumatic fall, a lot of times they have a cognition decline and they're really never able to get back to where they were before the incident. So if you can prevent that from happening, it's another opportunity to extend their quality years.
Dr. Deal, your thoughts on serious neurological
all of the above,
yes.
But you don't have to wait until you have a neurodegenerative disorder or an accident or brain injury or an illness. You don't have to wait because it's good for you anyway. It oxygenates the blood. It brings a good blood flow through the brain, and that helps keep the brain healthy. More than that, muscles that would otherwise atrophy. Try dancing. Cross-motor balance is figured out. Your body needs a workout like that, and dance is over time. It's listening to the music, it's anticipating and remembering the next move. It's coordinating and cooperating with others at a very precise level, actually. If you look at couples dancing or almost any ritual that human beings have had over the ages involving dance it's as fully human as you can be and fully expressive. That was the other word, expressive.
We've been talking about adults, but what about the panel, your thoughts on children and dance?
Definitely, as we can see from the beginning of preschool all the way to adulthood, dance has been infused as an opportunity for expression. It's infused as an opportunity for learning. It's infused as an opportunity to share perspectives and thoughts, and everyone has a different point of view. We can all hear the same type of music and have a different feeling, a different emotion related to it. So that definitely can go through the ages. And in addition to that, we know that in healthcare, the last thing that a person loses when they transition to the end of life is hearing. So one thing that we can do is bring back some memories with different types of music and expression.
Dr. Deal, your thoughts on children and dance?
When it comes to children and dance, well, I was thinking about brain development, and Dr. Borenstein, I think, would support this. The beauty of the whole conversation is that we're all in different fields, and that's what Neuroarts brings together. Children's brains develop between 0 and 8 years old in tremendous ways. And if children are in an environment that is not enriched and the stimulation isn't there for them, their brains suffer long-term and forever. And a lot of mental illness starts in those kinds of environments that are less than they could be. But in arts in schools programs, in arts-infused education curricula, that power of the arts, that ability to socialize children, it levels the playing field. Everybody gets the benefits, and it shows that, you know, that children who are involved in music and dance, they score higher on SATs. It sounds crazy, but they do. And that's part of it, is that they have actually helped their brain make decisions. They've learned to think quickly. They're very, very aware. Dance does all of that because it's dance and music. The other thing is theater. You want to engage a child's imagination, throw a little Hamilton at them.
Exactly.
Have them memorize some of the lyrics and the dancing that goes with it, and know their cues and know whose turn it is. All of the social skills that are conveyed by imagining yourself being characters in a play carry forward. So the neuro arts, we really feel it needs to come forward as the emphasis being on the scientific body of evidence about how it impacts the brain, and we can do more. So it's a new age, it's a new time to really incorporate this across the board.
Indeed. Dr. Borenstein, your thoughts on children's brains when it comes to dance?
Very important. As was mentioned, children's brains are developing through, from 0 to 8, but even beyond that, to young adulthood. Our brains are still developing till the mid-20s. And we alluded to this important issue of prevention. In the field of neurology and psychiatry, we haven't focused as much on prevention as we should. And we do that in heart disease. We treat high blood pressure, we treat cholesterol in order to prevent a heart attack. Dancing, these other neuro arts, other forms of exercise, these are all ways to generate health, and they're methods of prevention for some of the conditions that we spoke about today and other conditions such as depression and anxiety. Prevention. And I think it's very, very important. The science behind the neuro arts can help pull people into them. Because when people understand why they may be encouraged to do something, it helps them move forward with making that a part of their daily habit.
We appreciate everything so much. This has been a lot of fun, but we are running low on time. But I did want to touch base on another art form as a neuro art, and that's painting, drawing, and everything in the visual arts. Dr. Lewis, talk about how those skills benefit people dealing with neurological illnesses.
Well, we have found in regards to the literature, it shows that painting helps with fine motor skills. It also helps with individuals focusing on a particular element. Painting can also take, some of our patients have mentioned painting takes them into another world. They forget about their own pain. They forget about their illness. It gives them an opportunity to escape. So those are key elements that can be utilized to help with patients, not only motor, but psychological and physical well-being and mental health.
Dr. Deal, your thoughts on the visual arts?
Absolutely. The arts are a way of us being a mirror or reflecting our environment. So we have to focus on where we are. We have to focus on the image that we're trying to paint. And that quiets us in a great way. You know, our busy brains, we have lots going on, a lot of stimulus, a lot of randomness in the world. I took up watercolor painting over the end of last year, and I found that 45 minutes of painting significantly calms me down, and there's evidence that says it significantly drops cortisol levels.
Yes.
So it's a good practice. I recommend it.
It is.
Yeah.
And Blake, visual arts and your patients, tell us any experiences with that.
Well, just when we use it in our specialized day centers, one of the benefits is that you can come back to it. You don't have to do it all in one setting. You can paint a little and then come back. So when it becomes a frustrating process, when it's not going your way, you can circle back to it another day, but you can still get that sense of pride when you have a finished piece in front of you.
We are running low on time. I mean, we need another hour. I'm going to talk to the producer. I would love our panel to give your final 20 seconds or so on the importance of neuro arts. Cindy, let's start with you.
Oh, I just am so thrilled that Boca Ballet Theater offers this community outreach program, and I want to let everybody know that it is free to participants. We work really hard to get sponsorships, so that's not an obstacle to coming to our class. You're not paying a fee and you're not signing a contract. You come and you try it. and hopefully you love it. And if you love it, it's going to be something that you want to come back for. And then as you continue to come back, you're going to gain more confidence in what you're doing, and you're going to join a community that is amazing. Some of our participants arrive at our studio an hour before class to sit in the lobby and visit with each other because they've formed a community of new friendships, and they laugh and they join together for coffee, and it's just so beautiful to see. And getting rid of that isolation, that is huge. And so I just invite people to check out Boca Ballet Theater and come join us. We have classes this summer. We'd love for you to come give it a try. We'd love to meet you and love it to have you join our group.
Thank you, Cindy. Dr. Borenstein, your 20-second pitch for Neuroarts. 15.
20-second pitch is all ages, all conditions, whether you have an illness or don't. This is the time to begin to embrace it, the here and now, whether it be singing, listening to music, dancing, art. Embrace it because it's very healthy and enjoyable.
Dr. Lutes, your 15-second pitch.
We want to make Neuroarts scale out, where old boundaries, that this is physical therapy, but then so is dance, that all of these things can be more readily available. Neuroarts, the transdisciplinary study of how arts and aesthetic experiences measurably impact our body, brain, and behavior, and how we can translate that knowledge into specific practices that promote health and wellness. So, more.
Blake, your 15-second pitch.
So at Alzheimer's Community Care, our mission is to keep families living together in the community for as long as possible. The Neuroarts is a way to support that by helping the connection between the patient and the caregiver. It's hard to go from spouse or parent sibling to now patient caregiver. You can put the emotion and the connection back in and take it away from being so clinical. And then it's also a great way to provide that intervention at home.
Dr. Lewis, final thoughts?
I would encourage nurses and other healthcare providers to be engaged and speak up in their healthcare organization to incorporate more neuroarts as a part of the treatment plan. In addition, I want to encourage patients and their family members to say, do you have any neuroart availability in your facility while that is happening, or any resources in the community, so that it's not a hidden discussion. It's a part of our care and it's a part of us.
Thank you so much to our panel. They were terrific. Thank you for all of your insight. I also want to thank our audience for joining us tonight. We hope we were able to provide you with some valuable information about the healing power of the arts. I'm Carla Hill, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you to the Eunice Joyce Gardner Charitable Foundation for its leadership support of the Health Channel.